Hi, this is the Social Gelo with Angelo show. My name's Angelo. I'm a social scientist, surfer, martial artist, and a whole lot of other things. Coming to you live from Kasai City, Japan, the Social Gelo with Angelo show. Hey, what's up everyone? Thanks for checking out Social Gelo with Angelo. If you can, if you're listening to this from iTunes or some other streaming site, please subscribe to Social Gelo with Angelo. I'm trying to get 1,000 subscribers, and that's all I want to be able to support my show. If you like what you hear, just subscribe. This is part of the Kajukenbo series, where we talk about the Hawaiian martial art of Kajukenbo, and I interview different martial arts practitioners and their journeys. Today I interview Bob Deresh. I hope you enjoy the interview. Alright, so we are getting going here, and I'm here with Bob Deresh.
You got it.
Nice. I got the last name on the first try. Bob Deresh is a martial artist, and this is part of the Kajukenbo series, as I mentioned in the intro. How's it going, Bob?
That's going well, Angelo. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Where are you hailing from? You're coming from Kansas?
Wichita, Kansas.
Wichita, Kansas.
Yeah.
Well, you're not in Kansas anymore, bud.
Yeah. Unfortunately, actually, I'm trying to get out. All right. I'm working on it. So hopefully, before the summer's over, I'll have a place to go to.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
So, how long have you been in Kansas now, man?
Since July 16, 2012.
2012. Nice.
Yeah, 7 years.
7 years. And I guess for my listeners, what do you do for work, or what do you do for?
I'm an engineer in the aerospace business.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And getting straight into our series here, how long have you been training in martial arts?
Oh, so I had my first lesson was probably, I don't know, late 1970 or early 1971. I don't know exactly when, but thereabouts.
So that puts us late 1970.
Or let's call it 71.
We'll say 71.
Early 71. Yeah.
2011. Wow, so over 40 years.
Yeah, but it hasn't been steady. All right, it hasn't been consistent instructor-based training. There's been a lot of periods of lull.
And lots of periods of lulls. And what was the first style that you started training in?
It was, believe it or not, Taekwondo.
Taekwondo. And
Yeah.
how? Where was this? Where did you?
This was in Denver.
Denver. Okay.
Yeah.
And what made you want to get into martial arts? What attracted you to it?
Oh, I don't know. It was something that I wanted to do for a long time, starting probably since junior high school. Maybe. So probably in junior high school is where I realized that I probably needed to learn how to fight, and then maybe it was like in high school sometime when I really discovered that there's such a thing as martial arts and self-defense things. I wasn't exposed to it at all and anywhere in my life. So it's through maybe watching movies or something or maybe I think there might have been somebody in a high school class that was taking a Shotokan class or something.
Oh, okay.
Somehow I got exposed to the concept of, yeah, you can go and sign up for martial art lessons somewhere else, and that didn't happen though until after I left high school.
Oh, okay. And how did that go? How was that experience starting to do Taekwondo? Where were you in your life at that point? What were you up to?
I was going to school.
Okay. All right. So you were in college, and
Yeah.
you walk into your first Taekwondo class.
Well, so I was walking through the lobby of the dorm one evening, and there was a demonstration going on from the local Taekwondo club. The school had an intramural Taekwondo club that I saw during the demonstration. I hung around and I watched, and it was pretty neat. So I went and I talked to the guys afterwards, and because it was an intramural club, rates and fees were really low. They were student-based membership for joining a club, and that's when I started. So the first lessons were held in the lobby of the dorm on 2 nights a week or something. I don't remember when they were, but 2 nights a week.
And this is back in 1971, right? So,
Right.
one thing I want to address right off the bat, what would you say are the differences between the way Taekwondo was being practiced in 1971 in Colorado and the way you've seen Taekwondo practiced now?
Okay, so things have changed. All right. In 71, we were 71, that late 60s, early 70s era in martial arts was a pretty much like a golden age of competition. That's where all of your superstars came up. The Taekwondo that we were practicing, there were no pads, no head protection, no foot protection, no knuckle or foam wrapped around your knuckles and nothing. People got hit. There was blood. I got stitches on my face several times from getting hit. It was all controlled, but sometimes it isn't. Sometimes two 50% blows meet head on, and you know, my shins got that series of nicks up and down your shin bones, right? You can rub, even to this day, you can rub your fingers over my shins. I can feel the ridges from all the round kicks that were being blocked and stuff. So it was different. It was self defense. It was fighting.
Yeah, it sounds like real fighting. And when I've talked to people, and the reason I'm addressing this right off the bat, because I know this is part of the Kajukenbo series, and for anybody who started doing martial arts, I know by the time I started, in my generation, by the time I started, I did Kajukenbo, and as you know, we shared the same instructor, um, Professor Ronnie Sagiri. He used to share his studio with a Taekwondo school, and I've told the story before of he told me, yeah, if you ever want to do some extra training for sparring or point sparring, whatever, they do point sparring. And I didn't even know what point sparring was because every time I trained with Sifu, we only did continuous, which was pretty much mixed. If you look at the way Sifu did things, it was pretty much MMA. So when I walked into that Taekwondo class for the first time, very limited contact, a lot of no touch,
Yeah.
phantom points, one hit and not really a hit. I actually almost got kicked out of the class because I did what I figured was a light crescent kick to someone's head, and I guess the instructor disagreed with me, said it was excessive contact. There was no blood, so I mean, I figured.
How excessive could it? He was still standing, right?
Yeah, he was still standing. It wasn't like I
So how
knocked him out.
excessive could it have been, right?
Exactly. But yeah, and that's what I wanted to address. That's one of the things.
Yeah. So right.
Right off
So
the bat.
things change in the world, right? Um, now people are worried about insurance. They're worried about money in the dojos. They're afraid of losing students because a student would get hurt and run out crying and never come back. So times have changed.
And I guess it's the direction too, right? Like, how many Was there a kids class in that Taekwondo class that you were taking?
No, and when I was starting, it was all college age kids, right? We were all in the dorm together, and this was a club. Um, we had competitions now within other universities, right? It was intramural competitions between other universities. The same school, the same Taekwondo school, but they had each university in the local area had a school, had a club rather. And we had, twice a year there were competitions, and they were contact competitions. It was no points.
Yeah, and I think another good point you're bringing up here is this idea that this was the early stages of Taekwondo, early stages of a lot of martial arts back then. It was more focused towards adults and for actual fighting. While as time passed, the market kind of changed, and there's nothing. I'm not criticizing this because even here even in Kajukenbo we teach kids, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but
So,
but even in
so
Kajukenbo, like if you look at some of the history, I was reading this book. Well, I have it right here. Let me pull it out so my readers can see it. I was reading this book here called The Black Robe. It was written by David Tavarius, and he kind of talks about some of the history of Kajukenbo. And he talks about how back in the day in the Palama settlement, a lot of the original class was also only adults. They were hesitant to teach children, and his book goes into this story about how one of the professors ended up as a teenager, like they were hesitant to have him train because he was still underage. But they brought him in, but he was like one of the first few, I guess, kids or adolescents that they let into the program. Because back then, it was more focused towards adults and fighting. As time, like I said, times change and you try to change your programs to adjust for everyone. But I want to just
so
kind of
so
address that, like how times have changed.
the school now. So this was I was at the university intramural club. If I went downtown into the school, all right, the school did have a Saturday morning class, but you didn't see 10-year-old kids in there. All right, they were young teenagers. All right, a little bit older, not little tiny, little tiny kids. So they were youngsters, but they were able to change their own diapers, I guess. So
Yeah. And again, anyone listening, I'm not criticizing kids programs. Okay, like I run a kids program. I have kids really young as 3 and 4, and I'm teaching them real basics on how to punch and kick and how to be athletic and stuff. So I'm not criticizing that. I just want to point out the changes in approaches as time has passed in martial arts. So you took your first Taekwondo class. Now let's fast forward. Let's fast forward.
yeah,
Uh, you eventually got into Kajukenbo.
yeah.
How did that end up happening?
So through a series of life changes, I wound up in San Diego, and it's always been in the back of my head that I want to, I need to get back into this. I need to start working out again, and I started visiting the different schools around Southern California to see what they had offered, different styles, different schools. And the first thing I did, now there was you're familiar with Escondido, so there was I forgot the name of it, a Taekwondo school on Escondido Boulevard next to where all of the grocery stores are. I don't remember the name of that one.
I know the name of it, but
Yeah,
I
okay,
know
anyway.
I don't know what you're gonna say about the
No,
school.
well, I'm just
So
saying, what I'm saying is I went in, that was the first place I went in, right? Because Taekwondo was fairly close to home. I went in there and, well, just didn't excite me. And I went to traveling. I went down to some kung fu schools that I saw, different schools, and then I saw it. I forgot where. I think probably a phone book or something. I saw an ad for Kajukenbo, and I've never heard of Kajukenbo before. But let's see what it's about. And I went to the address in the phone book, and it was some place selling phone cards. So I thought they went out. I thought they went out of business. I said, okay, well, that's the problem with phone books. Is they get old fast. Um, so I don't know how or where, but somehow I saw a flyer somewhere that had the Kajukenbo at the Rancho Bernardo Rec Center, and I stopped in. I saw a class. I liked the way the class was handled. I liked the method of instruction, and I said, okay, I'm going to try this.
So you came in, and who did you see when you walked in? I'm wondering who was practicing.
I think Sifu Mike was there. I think on my first day. Obviously, Professor Ronnie was there. Wasn't a professor then. Um, I don't remember many other people.
So
You were probably there.
oh, I was there.
Yeah. Oh, you remember?
Yeah, I remember.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember.
All right.
So you walked in, and I guess going back to these differences.
Yeah.
You did Taekwondo in 1971. Then you walked into a Taekwondo school almost 30 years later, right? Over 30 years later.
Yeah.
And what were some of the first things that stood out to you when you walked into that Taekwondo class from 1971 and then 30 years later into the new one? And
Oh,
again, for you listeners that may be from that school that he's talking about, we're not, again, I want to make it very clear, we're not trying to attack your school or your methods of teaching or anything like that. We're just kind of pointing out some of the differences that have happened throughout time. That's all.
yeah. And again, um, so there was a period of time somewhere it happened somewhere in the 80s or 90s where somebody came up with this formula to how to run a successful dojo, right? You get your black belt and you follow our formula and you could be a successful business person. All right. And I think that's where the biggest change happened. One of the things that I did not like about this, well, first of all, I watched the way the class was conducted. I hung around. I watched some sparring. I have one of my, because I'm a little bit knowledgeable. I had a little bit of knowledge prior. You can always tell the quality of the school, of the teacher, by watching the advanced belts and how they handle themselves. Right. Um, so the fact that the advanced belts that I saw in the school at that time didn't impress me. The fact that they sat me down at the table and tried to sell me a condo or a timeshare. I didn't want that either. You know,
Wait. Like an actual timeshare, like.
no, I'm kidding, but it was the same. If you've ever gone to a timeshare closing, where they set you down at the table and they tell you all these things where you want to sign the contract, and if you sign the contract, if you sign for 2 years, you can get a 10%, and it's only $100 per month. But if you sign for 2 years, it's only $95 per month. And you get testing programs every 6 months. We get another testing program for a belt, right? And once in my life, I signed a contract for martial arts class, and that was, the guy wanted me to sign a 1 year contract. I said, no, I'm not going to sign a 1 year contract. I don't know anything about and that was recently. It was Brazilian Jiu Jitsu for 6 months. And it wasn't, I was there for 6 months. I fulfilled my contract. They tried to get me to renew, but it wasn't what I was looking for. So I don't like signing contracts. If the guy wants to teach me, if I'm going to be a student and I'm going to learn, and the teacher wants to teach me, that's fine. We'll work out a deal. But I understand the need for one. These guys have a studio that they're trying to rent, and they need money to pay for that studio. And the way that they're going to get the money is to have a certain number of contracts signed, a certain cash flow coming in. I get it.
But still, some of it like makes you feel a little bit poured out.
Yeah, well, and that's a good way of saying it. It's like, okay, so why am I doing this? Why am I going? Am I going because I signed a contract, or am I going because I really like these people and I want to keep going? Well, with my in a jujitsu class, I wound up going only because I had the contract signed.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I think you made it really clear. This isn't really about contracts. It's more about the kind of community you're building at your dojo. But kind of
Right.
going, let's go reverse this back. What was what was it that you were not impressed by these advanced ranks? Because you said, it's just I wasn't impressed by what they were doing. What exactly stood out to you as far as like things that you were not impressed with?
Movement, skills, techniques. Um, so I, I mentioned to you once or twice, or maybe once only, I don't know. I was very fortunate in my martial arts experience that the instructors that I managed to contact, that I managed to train under, were first generation from the masters. All right. So you have to understand what my point of view is, that every time there's another generation, things get lost. All right. They're not, it's, you can't remember everything that the master teaches you. So you're going to teach something which you remember, maybe add your own little flavor to it, but it's going to be different from what the master taught you. And by the time you go down the lineage, all right, things get watered down. Very difficult to have a fifth generation black belt um, be able to replicate exactly what the master taught the first generation student. Right. So I was fortunate. All of the teachers that I had in martial arts were first generation from the grandmaster. And you can, so when I walk into another school and I see somebody who is, well, right now a lot younger than I am, and they're sporting a first degree black belt, how can I expect to them to be able to teach me? They haven't been around long enough. They haven't studied long enough. They haven't trained long enough to be able to communicate the techniques.
And you're talking again more based off of your personal experience, right? You're talking off
Yes.
the idea that you started in 1971. You trained on and off, but I'm sure at that point, maybe cumulatively, how many years of Taekwondo training do you think you had when you walked into that class?
Oh, 6.
See, so even looking at the basics of Taekwondo and the way Taekwondo is conducted now, most Taekwondo schools will give you a black belt within 2 years, right? So like you came in 6 years of Taekwondo experience, which would probably put you somewhere between. I'm not an expert on the Taekwondo system, but I do know enough of my friends that are in the Taekwondo system to know that if you did train for about 6 years, you would have somewhere between a second or third degree black belt at that point, right? So
That's
essentially,
that's
you're
today.
yeah, that's
That,
today. Now that's not back then. Back then it took a
right.
lot longer. But what I'm trying to get at is, and for anyone, because I know there might be people listening right now thinking that we're bashing Taekwondo, and I'm not. I want to make it very clear, I'm not bashing Taekwondo. Um, Bob is merely talking about his experiences coming from someone who had doing martial arts for over 30 years, cumulatively did Taekwondo for 6 years, was working under a really strong lineage, and then walked into a different Taekwondo school. Essentially, he'd be starting as a white belt with the skills that in that school would have made him above the black belts that are going to be teaching him. So it was mostly a disagreement with your experience and skills compared to the instructors that were there for you. If that
Yes.
that
Right.
clears anything up, right?
Right.
So you go into the so we're gonna mix the record here real quick. So you go into the Kajukenbo school, you join, you're ready to start your training. What were some of the things that stood out? What were some of the differences, even between Tae Kwon Do and coming into Kajukenbo? What were some of the differences that you noticed between the styles?
Okay. Between the style difference. Okay. Well, so Taekwondo are 70, 80% kicks. They're headhunters. The kicks are all high. They're all trying to knock your head off. Um, there's a lot of flying and jump kicks in Taekwondo. I didn't see that in Kaju, which is good because I can't jump. So, um, and so there was a lot more hand techniques and blocking techniques for the upper body for the against punches. All right, that I experienced in Kajo. Yes, Taekwondo has the same low block, high block, middle block, but you execute those blocks more against kicks than you do against a punch. So when you're sparring in Taekwondo, you're blocking kicks. We throw a lot of side kicks in Kajo, right? We throw a lot of front kicks in Kaju, but you don't get, occasionally you'll see somebody do a spinning jump back kick or something, right? But it's not part of the normal curriculum. So I mean, those were the differences from my 1970 experience with Kaju comparison.
So you come in, you notice there's more hand to hand techniques. There's more hand techniques, more punching. Uh, you start training. What were some of the challenges you faced trying to adjust to Kajukenbo?
That I was old.
I didn't want to say it. I was waiting for you to maybe mention it.
my brain remembered what I used to be able to do, and my body wasn't quite reacting the same way. Plus, I don't care how good you were. If you don't practice the technique on a regular basis, you lose it. You lose the speed, you lose the coordination, you lose the angles, the balance, you lose everything. So, it's things like my brain wanted to do things, but my body wasn't responding. So that was the hardest.
So, if you don't mind me asking, how old were you when you started Kajukenbo?
I guess I was about 55, 56, maybe, I think, when I started again.
All right, and that really answers the question. I get for those of you watching this, I do answer questions either in YouTube or also Quora seems to be the biggest one, where people ask me questions about martial arts psychology and podcasting. And one of the questions I get quite a bit is, if I've never trained in martial arts, is it too late to start now? And then I look at the age, or the person will mention their age. I'm 22. and I've never trained in martial arts. Is it too late to start now? And I've had some people a little older ask me the same question. Some in their 30s, some in their 40s. What would you say? Is it too late?
No, it's not. It's never too late. It's like there's never too late to do anything. It all depends on where your head's at. Now, I will say this: that as I got older, it takes my body a little more time to recover from the you know excessive workouts.
So as an older person, and they talk about how after 40 you have the testosterone drop. That's why you see a lot of MMA fighters retire, even boxers retire around 40, even the champions retire around 40 for the same reason. That testosterone drop means slower recovery. That's a lot of people think it's slower reaction time. That's true, yeah, a little bit of slower reaction time. But the really big one is the slower recovery. Like you,
Yeah.
in order to compete at an elite level, you got to push yourself really hard to prepare for fights, and then pushing yourself like that. When you're younger, you bounce right back. You go in, you have a heavy sparring or a heavy bag session, and the next day you come back and you can get right back in there and do it all over again. And you can take your 1 day off a week, and your body in that 1 day will repair all the broken down tissue and proteins, and you're back at it again. Not to mention you can eat like a horse, and it doesn't affect your body.
Right.
But what were some of the things you had to do to manage that?
So I was pretty fortunate because I thought I kept myself in pretty good shape. I wasn't overweight. I still had some muscle tone, reasonable amount of flexibility. Wasn't really awesome, but it was reasonable. And that's again because in the back of my head, I kept on fitness programs. Right, my legs had some reasonable strength to them. My knees weren't blown out from other sports and other activities. So I was still in pretty good shape. The thing that again, it was the recovery. Um, During sparring, if you get hit, it's going to take you a little bit longer for your body to fix itself up. If you have an overly hard workout in class, your muscles are going to be sore. The next day you're tired, the second day you're sore. Well, it actually takes me today, it takes me a week for those muscles to recover before I can go back and perform and do what I did the previous week. So it takes me a week.
So definitely knowing your body, listening to your body.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I mean, and I discovered that 1 week time frame because you try to push it, and then you can't. So you take time off, and the week is the magic number for me. Now I'll also say that if I stop, I have to stay active because if I stop, things tighten up a lot faster. I lose it faster. All right. So consequently, I'm on like a 6 day a week training program, but I have routines that I do on Monday that repeats itself the following Monday because I need that week to recover. So I'll go to the gym and I'll lift weights. What I'll do on Sundays, I do my back, right? And I do hamstrings. So it takes me a week. The next Monday, I'll do my back and I'll do hamstrings again. All right, because it takes me a week to recover, or next Sunday rather. Yeah.
And so you started doing Kajukenbo, you started training. What? You're a little older, so you're figuring out your body and the recovery time. Um, how did things go as you were working your way through the system? What were your goals?
I don't know if I started with any goals. My goals were to learn Kajukenbo, to get back into shape. I was doing it for the physical aspect with the side benefit of the martial art. All right, because to me, there's no better training program than something like a martial art because it has that side benefit of the self-defense portion of it. Gymnastics is good, right? Gymnastics will do the same thing to your body that martial arts will. All right, but it doesn't have that same extra benefit on the side, right? So yeah, to me, I didn't have a goal. My goal was to learn, to be in shape and to learn. I didn't go in there and I didn't say I'm going to have a black belt. I'm striving for a black belt. All right, I went in there to learn the art.
And as time passed and you started getting closer to that black belt,
Then
uh,
yeah, then you say, hey man, I can do this.
you can do
All
this.
right,
And what was
I
and you knew At that point, you attended a black belt testing, right? You've seen a black belt testing in action.
Yes, right. In gymnasium, right.
And if you want to just kind of let my listeners know, what were your thoughts when you saw your first black belt testing? What did you
I
see?
said, oh, I can do this, right?
Nice.
I can do that. I mean, really, I did it before, right? So yeah. I mean, it was so the black belt testing in Kaju was similar, all right, to the experience that I had in Taekwondo, all right, 30 years, 40 years earlier, 40 years earlier. Um, so I looked at it and I said, oh man, this is pretty neat. Watch. There's another thing is I trained with these guys. I trained with you. All right. I knew what you were capable of. I knew what the people who you were fighting were capable of. I said, oh wow, this is pretty neat. This is good. Um, and again, I was impressed by it. It wasn't, it wasn't you earned it. All right. It wasn't given to you. It wasn't given to you. All right.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is. You earn it. You I want to say some people think that it's a pass or fail, and it's not really a pass or fail, like where you pass, you win. People were like, you have to beat. I believe in every school and every style is different, and I believe in Kyokushin karate in Japan. They make you fight a very large amount of fighters. I forget what it is. It's like
Where is that?
50 or 100 or something. They make
There's
you,
that 100 man. There's
yeah,
that
100
hundred
man,
man
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
But there's something for their black belt test. They have to do something similar to that, where they have to go through like, I think it's over 50 people, a lot of people. It's a ridiculous amount of people, and
And Aikido has that thing too.
they cannot lose to any of them, and they're full contact fighting with no gear, and they don't punch to the face, but they're still full contact fighting with no gear, bare knuckle, and they're allowed to kick to the head, and they're supposed to be able to either come to a draw or defeat. They cannot lose to anyone, and what I find it interesting was that, like, and we would do one-on-one fights, but the Kajukenbo philosophy is to break you. So it's not so much about winning, it's about surviving and not giving up. So, like, you can essentially, quote unquote, lose, get TKO'd, but as long as you get back up and you finish the time on the clock and you don't give up, then if you survive the test, then you earned your black belt, and everyone's gunning for you during that test. It's not, you know, it's not based on this thing of winning. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people think about when they think about martial arts. They think about, oh, how many fights have you won? And I always tell people, I have lost way more than I've won. way more, way more than
So
I've won.
you have to think about that. Is in every martial art, there's people that are better than others because their physical skills are better. Or even two people on any given day, one will beat one and the other will beat the other on another day. All right. So it's the attitude that prevails rather than the aptitude, let's say.
Yeah,
Right? You can do it. You go in there. You have to know your techniques. You have to be prepared. Right? You have to display technique. So you're not going in there blindly swinging in a street brawl. You have to display technique, and you do show you show forms and you show techniques and you show the grab arts and the punch arts, and you display those. But when it comes down to the competition, to the combat, it's about attitude.
yeah. No, yeah, exactly. It's about attitude, and like I said, I sometimes people will ask me, like, I'll go to a training session, And now, like as you know, I run my Kajukenbo program, and I also visit jiu-jitsu schools and MMA schools, and I cross train with the Gracie Barra school out here in Japan. And one thing that I noticed for me, my mindset when I'm training with people, is I'm not thinking about winning. I'm thinking about holding my own, but I'm never thinking about, like after a session, I don't sit there and be like, okay, well today I won 5 times. Today I tapped 8 people, or today I almost I not I rung, in MMA today there was a school that visited us and I almost not, I TKO'd this many people. I don't look at my training sessions in that fashion. I look at my training sessions as this is the practice. They got me here. I was able to return. I was able to counter strike. I'm always just thinking of the techniques as singular events, and I don't look at it as a fight. I look at it as practice, right? I look at it as practice. I can I can care less how many times I quote unquote won. I care more about what techniques did I execute that I wanted to practice. Was there a new technique that I've been trying to finesse that I was able to pull off? Those things are more meaningful to me than winning. If I don't, I
You're
don't,
competing. You're competing against yourself.
yeah, essentially,
You have to do better than what you did last time.
exactly, exactly. Did I beat myself? Did I?
Yes.
That's more important to me than
Was
did I?
I better this time than I was last time?
Yeah, yeah. And admittedly, sometimes I'm not.
Yeah. Well, again, your horoscope is off that day or something, right? Sometimes you're just not up. You're mentally your body just isn't prepared. You're mentally not prepared,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So you got through the program. Can you tell me about how did things go for your black belt test? How was that? What? How was? If you want to share with my listeners, how did that go? What happened?
So mine was a little different than the normal, probably for a number of reasons. But the biggest reason was I got a new job. I was relocating, um, and time was short. Um, I mentioned to Sifu Ronnie at the time, Professor Ronnie, that hey, I'm moving. I'd really like to find some way that we could come back and train on a once a month or something basis, and try to work towards it, because I like, I'm almost there. I'd like to get this black belt. Um, and it's okay. So yeah, we can do something. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Show up to class one day, and there's a bunch of people there. Um, a lot of his black belts were there. People that I haven't seen in a long time that only show up once in a while. And okay, this is cool. Again, far from my mind, right? And then we start with the regular class, and we go through the regular class, and then there's a Sifu at the time did this thing where he had the 2 rows of people, and you have a 30-second or 1 minute bout, and then one row stays placed, and then the next row shifts down one. So you have a whole bunch of people in front of you, and they keep changing. Well, all of a sudden I got this group of black belts in front of me, and we're starting to, and these are, because it's a different environment. They're supposed to be like, it's supposed to be 75, 50, 75% contact, you know, and the first, I don't remember who the first black belt was, but damn, that wasn't 50%. That wasn't 75% contact. What the heck's going on here? I said, damn. All right. We got to step this up a little.
Getting picked on
You know,
today.
yeah, we got to step this up a little bit, man. What the heck's going on, right? So okay. So that was the first one, and then the next one comes. I'm standing in front of another one. I don't know. It might have been Sifu Simon. And the same thing's happening. And it's like, oh man, come on, man. I thought this was like, we only do 75% over here, you know? And then bam, again, I said, okay, all right, step this one up again. And then it just, all the way down the line, things were getting a little more difficult than they normally were. So, I went through all of that. And then, at the end of class, it surprised me and asked me to step forward and present me with the black belt.
That's awesome.
So like I said, it was a little bit different, again, because of the time constraint. But, I've been training so I wasn't new. He knew what my capabilities are and what I was able to do and what I knew. So it was fun, though. A little disappointed that it wasn't, the gymnasium thing, but I'm still alive.
I think, again, surviving, right? That's the goal, really.
So, yeah.
The gymnasium thing that he did, that was, every school does it differently, but I've seen him, that surprise belt promotion that he did for you, I've seen him do that too. And
Okay.
I actually
That's cool.
I actually believe that the gymnasium one is easier because you can prepare for it and you know what's going to happen. While the way you did it is a little more difficult because you just think, like you said, you just think you're there on a regular day.
Right.
A regular day of training. And I mean, yeah, Kajukenbo is hard. Our 50% is considered 80 in other schools, as I mentioned earlier with my Tae Kwon Do story. But we're always like, during a regular day, we're not essentially trying to knock you out. Like, we do go hard. We'll go hard to the body, but for our tests, we go at each other like a real fight. We're trying to knock you out. We're trying to get you. We're trying to TKO you at least. Not send you to the hospital, but we are trying to. We for that black belt test, we want you to be able to defend yourself, or at least try to survive against an opponent who is better than you, who's really gunning for you, right? They're not just.
And the normal sparring in class, and everybody's had the wind knocked out of them, right? People have gotten chipped teeth, get hit in the face, right? You come out with bruises and stuff right? I've come out with welts on my bicep because somebody walloped me on the bicep pretty hard and couldn't move my arm the next day. And that's a regular training class.
Yeah. But like when you come in and the surprise black belt test, then usually the way we work in Kajukenbo is, we'll kind of, if we do end up walloping each other and someone says, oh, I got injured during my last sparring session, we'll just kind of take it easy on that person for the rest of the day. So like, for example, I go in and I fight Sifu Mike, and me and Sifu Mike go a little harder than usual, and Sifu Mike hurts my arm or my shin. If I tell Sifu, okay, my shins hurt or my legs hurt, I'm gonna go light for the rest of the sparring session, for the rest of the practice session. Okay, that's cool. And then everyone will kind of, we'll go off of that. But when you're being surprise tested, like I said, since in the test, if that happens, it's about being able to continue, and the next person's not going to go easy on you.
Yeah. And the other thing is,
it's a little more of a kind of caught off, not caught off guard. It's a little more of a shock, like, wow, it's being hard on me today. Oh man, but you survived, and you got your black belt. And if I'm not mistaken, Sifu gave you that one with an instructor certificate, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you got the title of Sifu. And just to let my listeners know a little bit of our school, you can get your black belt, but you do not get your instructor certificate with your black belt. It's rare. So Bob's case is a little bit rare. Normally, you get your black belt, and then you show to your instructor that you're not going to essentially quit. You're going to keep training as a black belt. You'd be surprised how many people get their black belts, and then life takes them in whatever direction it takes them. But yeah, you have to earn your instructor certificate. So Bob showed our instructor, Professor Rani Sagiri, that he was dedicated and knew the techniques and demonstrated them well enough to be able to be an instructor himself, and he earned his instructor certificate with that. Congratulations, belated congratulations on that. I told you that before.
Yeah, thank you.
So you got it. You moved.
Yeah.
What are your goals now, Bob? What do you want to do with your martial arts?
Well, so the last 7 years or so, I've been studying kung fu. Again, fortunate enough to have a excellent teacher that was first generation from the grandmaster, and the kung fu has helped me tremendously with kaju techniques. I was a little, a little stiff, a little rigid. Fighting stance was off sometimes. Um, my movements weren't fluid. Um, they weren't efficient. Kung Fu is making me more fluid, more efficient, and dare I say, faster. I'm not wasting the motion. I'm not wasting the movements. When I was, I think you and I might have talked about this during sparring. As I had this little bit of a phobia maybe because of the Tae Kwon Do background. I wanted to stay kicking distance away from my opponent. All right, I didn't like being up close and personal. That's changed. All right. What I've learned in kung fu is sometimes you need to be up close and personal. Um, and maybe I got a little of that from that 6 month in the BJJ. I'm not afraid of somebody's sweat. So, you know,
That's the bigger. That's the unmentioned one in BJJ.
as a young man, yeah.
Yeah, everyone talks about, oh, you're gonna be closer. BJJ is really up close and personal, and they think, oh, it's because you have this person. It's not just that. It really is the sweat. Like literally,
Yeah, but
someone else's sweat all over your face. Um, really can throw off your focus if you're not focused enough.
so I mean, there's that aspect, but my my view my view of self defense and offense versus defense has changed. All right, like I said, with Taekwondo, it was long. I got fairly long legs, so kicking was cool because I can keep that opponent away from me. All right, now I don't have to do that, so it's helped me. I like to look at I'm taking the Kajukenbo and I'm breaking it up and I'm learning each of the parts. You take the karate part and I'm associating that. Although Tang Sudo is a little bit different than Taekwondo, I'm checking that box off. I'm checking the box. I'm checking the kung fu box off. All right. As I mentioned, I'm looking at I'm looking at moving. Hopefully, before the summer's over, I'll have another job somewhere else, or I'll be moving someplace else. I don't know what the new area is going to be. I don't know what it's going to offer. All right. Hopefully, I'm going to find something that's going to complete the Kaju family of martial arts. And maybe I can find a Kempo school somewhere, or better yet, maybe there is another Kaju person somewhere else in the world. Um, it doesn't have many followers. There aren't many Kaju schools in the various states. You can't go to a strip mall in Wichita, Kansas, and find a Kaju school.
No, you cannot. Yeah, yeah. Well, there is quite a bit of instructors, but yeah, they are scattered across the globe, literally.
Right, and they tend to be focused in certain areas. They're focused. There's a bunch in Southern California. There's a bunch of them in L.A. area. There's a few. California's got that box covered. All right, Phoenix area metro has that box covered. I'm sure there's a few on the East Coast somewhere. I don't know where they are. Other countries have got them. You know,
Yeah,
Denver, I think, is still active with Kaiju.
yeah. Puerto Rico, Spain,
Puerto Rico, Portugal.
Portugal.
Yeah.
I believe there's one in the UK. I forget where. I think London. And well, now Japan, because of me and
Yeah, now Japan.
and Seafood John over in Okayama. But still, right, only two of us in all of Japan. So, and also Turkey. I think it's Turkey. Wait, I might be.
Turkey?
I might. It's in the Middle East, but I forgot where. It might be. It's either. Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to mess this up. I don't want to mess this up. It might be Pakistan. So for my listeners, I forget where that school is, but it's in the Middle East. I know that much. But yeah, kind of scattered across the globe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Bob, first of all, I really want to thank you for taking your time and doing this interview.
No problem.
And you know what I mean by that.
Yep.
Is there any closing statement you want to make to anybody listening? Any advice?
I don't know.
Any advice you have for people who feel they're older starting martial arts?
Yeah, there's no such thing as you're too old. If you think you're too old, you will be too old. All right, so don't think you're too old. Just go in there and take it easy and let your body tell you how far you can push it. Listen to your body. You know, eat healthy. That's the most important thing. Work on flexibility. Flexibility is going to get the older people. It's going to take you a little bit longer to get flexible, but do it slow. Don't start ripping and tearing things because that happens too. Stretching weakens your muscles. All right, so you can't have both, but you can stretch and you can train. And then obviously, if you get older, bone density becomes a factor. So weightlifting is a cure to counter bone density loss. So there you have it. If you're going to start, you're going to start. And it's like anything else. If you really want to get out of it, you got to put into it. So don't just think of it's going to be a hobby that you're going to do 2 days a week, because you're not.
Yeah, there's no such thing as martial arts season. It's not like football
Right.
or soccer or anything like that.
So I mean that's it. You go to class to exercise the techniques that you've learned. You go to class to learn new techniques. But when you come home, that's when you learn your martial arts. That's when you get your body. It's like anything else that you learn. You go to school, you learn something, you come home and you study and practice. It doesn't work if you're just going to show up for an hour twice a week. It's not going to cut it, especially when you're older.
So practicing at home, taking what you learn.
And you got to supplement it with other stuff. You got to supplement it with stretching and lifting. Now, I'm not talking older. I'm not talking about 25 and 30 years old. I'm talking about older. All right.
Not the 19, 20-year-olds who keep hitting on court.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about after that testosterone drop after 40.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're not getting mail from ARP, you're not old enough. All right.
Well, Bob, thanks again for being on the show, brother. I really appreciate it, and for my listeners, this is part of the Kajukenbo series. I hope you enjoyed the interview. Stay tuned for the wrap up. All right, so that's the wrap up. Thanks for checking out Social Gelo with Angelo. I've been starting to getting into comedy, so I'm going to be performing on August 31st at an open mic. You can check it out. The information is at my Facebook page. If I haven't invited you, you can check it out at Gelo Ferrer. It's at the Cafe Lingua in Osaka, Japan, in Danoji. And it's between 7 and 10. I have a 10-minute stand-up set that I'll be doing. and hopefully I can make some people laugh. It's my first time doing it, and I'm kind of nervous, but it should be a good one. All right, well, thank you very much. If you stuck around this long listening to the show, please just hit subscribe. And if you're interested in Kajukenbo training, check out the Kajukenbo training playlist, and it shares all of my Kajukenbo, not all, but many of my Kajukenbo techniques, as well as beginners tips on how to get started with martial arts, basic stretches, punches and kicks, and that kind of stuff. All right, I'll catch y'all later. Peace.